prefer to wait a while.
Couldn't figure out what button to click on. We are live. Myself, Laffy, doing a process show for the first time since last week. Got a lot to talk about, too. We have a very garbagey baseball slate. We have a review, potentially, of some NFL. We had the first week of the NFL season. We had 2 Monday night games last night. How did your NFL weekend shake out for you when all is said and done?
So, cash, everything was solid. I mean, obviously, Alvin Kamara, popular play, cash game staple. The same with James Conner.
Yes.
Tournaments, not so. Okay, so it was looking really bad. I'll put it this way. It was looking really bad. I think at one point I was winning back 180 in the Millionaire Maker on maxed out entries.
Ooh.
But then I thought to myself, wait, okay, hold on. I have a ton of late game exposure. So that turned around, right? And then Kenny Stills had that 75-yard touchdown in a game that went on for 47 hours.
Oh my God. I just kept wondering why I was doing so poorly. And it was like, oh yeah, I do have quite a bit of exposure to this Dolphins-Titans game, and it should have been done 4 hours ago.
Right. So I think it turns out that made most of my money back, but was kind of upset with myself. You know what? No, I wasn't. I'm willing to take risks, right?
Sure.
And with James Conner, I still had a good amount of exposure to Conner because we talked about this. Like, we were pretty certain that he was going to be used in the same capacity as Le'Veon Bell.
Yes.
With Alvin Kamara, that's where it went from me having a really, really good week to a slight losing week.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is I saw that game script going entirely different. And
I don't think you're in the minority there.
No, I'm not. But most people also, those who rostered Kamara, and no ill will towards them, not saying they did the wrong thing. Like I said, I played Kamara in cash, but the difference was that they saw it as doesn't matter what happens, Kamara is going to have a monster game. Now, he did have a monster game, but 9 receptions, 112 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns through the air wasn't exactly what I was visioning happening, because I really thought, they're 10-point favorites at home in the Dome against Ryan Fitzpatrick. And you know what it was that really threw this off for me, that made it so Michael Thomas would have 16 receptions and Kamara would finish with monster numbers through the air and only 29 rushing yards. It was the fact that, according to Pro Football Focus, and this is pretty incredible, the Saints finished with the worst pass coverage rating of any team in the league in week 1. Whereas last year, the Saints finished in the top 10 of pass coverage. So their pass coverage was as bad as you could possibly imagine, and they're playing from behind for 3 quarters. I didn't see that coming. The great game script flipped on its head, and Alvin Kamara ended up being the focal point of the offense when they needed to win in the second half, where I thought they'd be icing the game over the second half, or at least not trying to claw back from a 14-point deficit. So you win some, you lose some, Josh. I took a risk, and I went with a lot of David Johnson over Kamara. I also had a lot of Melvin Gordon. That worked out, but a lot of David Johnson over Kamara. Arizona ran like 14 plays in the first half. Sam Bradford's garbage.
Yeah, they are bad.
Yeah, and David Johnson really didn't even have a chance. Like, he didn't have a chance to produce because they couldn't get anything going offensively. It was a rough one for sure.
Yeah. The pivot off of Kamara and GPPs was pretty, I don't want to say obvious, because that's not the way that I mean it, but he was very highly owned. David Johnson was at a similar price point and not showing the same exposure. So he was a natural move in GPPs to get off of the 40% Kamara or whatever it was supposed to be, or whatever it ended up being. You mentioned Connor at the start. He was one where I didn't see a reason not to eat that chalk. I didn't see a scenario where like he wasn't just a really good value play.
Exactly.
There wasn't anybody else around his price point that offered any sort of share of his upside.
Right. No, that's a really good point, because that's a great way to look at this, because with Connor, you have a guy that's going to be popular. But the game script again didn't seem like one where I would benefit from fading, right? With Kamara, I did think there was a way where they could. Like, how about, dude, why don't we take a look at on the AFC, Baltimore and Buffalo, Alex Collins. They won like 48-6, 47-6, and Collins had 13 yards and a touchdown on like 7 carries because he wasn't used in the second half.
Yeah.
Now I'm not ever saying that you can predict that a game is going to be such a massive blowout that the starting running back is on the bench and Kenneth Dixon's getting the bulk of the workload. What I am saying though is that I didn't expect Kamara to get targeted double-digit times in the passing game because they were ahead. But your point with Connor is a salient one, because they were only 3-point dogs or 3-point favorites when that line closed. The weather was going to be terrible, and even if it wasn't apocalyptic, it was still going to be bad, which it was. And every backup that we've seen come in for Le'Veon Bell has been pretty effective. So that's a great point. Sometimes, and another thing, Alvin Kamara was twice the price as James Conner. So if you're eating that James Conner chalk, you're not paying a premium for him, and he's in a great spot. The chalk that I faded almost entirely, I think at 5%, was Keelan Cole.
Same.
But and that's because Keelan Cole had a very good chance of putting up 5 fantasy points like he did. And when he had that 30-yard reception on the first drive, I'm like, okay, well, I hate this game.
I cursed my TV immediately and then went to the gas station.
Yeah, but you know what? The case is with a guy like Connor, you felt pretty good about the fact that he was going to get a boatload of work, and maybe he got more than any of us expected.
Yeah, I didn't exactly see 31 carries and 6 targets in the passing game. But
and
I saw
we
like 15 and 5, and that was perfectly acceptable to me at 4,500.
Yes. Of course, and we didn't see 15 minutes of overtime either.
Sure, right? No, not at all. Not at all.
But still, even had it not been for overtime, Connor's still finishing with a huge game. And that's because anyone who ever fills in for Le'Veon Bell, whether it had been D'Angelo Williams or whoever, got work. And he got work. And guess what? Le'Veon Bell, right? By the way, Le'Veon Bell would make more in a game this year than James Conner would make the entire season. And James Conner pretty much did what they needed Le'Veon Bell to do, other than the fumble.
Yeah, I saw a tweet with stats. I don't remember the stats off the top of my head, but I know the general direction of like Le'Veon Bell versus everyone that has started in Le'Veon Bell's place when he wasn't there. And it's essentially like 90% of his production. Yep. Even if you get 80% of Le'Veon Bell's production, it's not like I thought that there were 4 more dudes on Pittsburgh that were going to get carries. It's not like the Chiefs situation where they have like 7 good running backs.
Right.
Like Connor was going to have to get at least some work. You just had to.
Yeah.
And if in the past everybody was getting like 80% of Bell, 80% of Le'Veon Bell is more than a $4,500 running back.
Yeah, of course. And Le'Veon Bell last year wasn't even really that efficient, right? Like he averaged an even 4 yards per carry.
Yeah.
He wasn't when you have 119 targets in the passing game and 337 rushing attempts, like you're bound to put up really solid fantasy numbers.
Yeah.
So if James Conner, let's just say, got that same workload, which is very, very, very realistic. It's not improbable that continues if Le'Veon Bell continues to hold out. If he continues to get that same workload, I can pretty much assure you that James Conner will be the same price as Le'Veon Bell would be in week 5.
Exactly. It was strictly a price point. And then I look at the guys that were at his range. It's like, okay, Royce Freeman, I had him projected pretty significantly lower than Connor. But even if you want to say that that's closer, there are less barriers to James Conner having a successful day against Cleveland than Royce Freeman in the brand new Denver offense with Case Keenum against Seattle. Like, it's just, I liked Freeman, but I felt significantly safer from a floor and ceiling perspective on Conner.
Yeah, I wish I could say the same about Kamara. I really thought that, like, from a floor standpoint, Johnson and Kamara, I guess, I wasn't really targeting a floor. You were targeting just, that was one where you take a stand and say, all right, Kamara is going to be heavily owned, and he honestly should have been higher owned. Yeah. But I think a lot of people had that same mindset. And I've always been someone that says I'm not going to fade chalk if I think it's too good of it. Like, I'm not fading chalk just because they're chalk. If I think they're in a position where they, you can always fail, but where they're very unlikely to fail. Yeah. Unfortunately, I thought that Alvin Kamara, I didn't think it was likely to fail, but I thought it was very likely that he could just have a mediocre game. And again, who knows what would have happened if they weren't playing behind the whole game, but they did. And David Johnson was playing from behind the whole game, but his quarterback is, as he's horrible. Like, the offense was so anemic that he got nothing going all game long. And that was the difference maker. Look at a Melvin Gordon. Yeah. Like, David Johnson couldn't get anything going because his quarterback is trash. The Saints played from behind, and Drew Brees, was at least operating the offense well, getting points and yards on the board and fantasy production. Same with Phillip Rivers. Like, Phillip Rivers still got the ball in the air to Melvin Gordon 9 times on 13 targets. He still carried it 15 times. Melvin Gordon was very involved throughout the entire game, even though they were playing from behind all game. With Sam Bradford, if they're playing from behind, like, the guy can't even rack up garbage time yards.
Yeah, it's weird how if you use your best players, you can keep yourself afloat. But apparently Arizona didn't want to do that, because if you can't figure out how to get David Johnson involved in a game where you're getting absolutely destroyed, if you're only going to get 9 carries and 9 targets, you're going to get crushed. Well, who else are you trying to give the ball to in that Arizona offense outside of Fitz, who is not exactly the Larry Fitzgerald of 10 years ago?
Yeah, not at all. And Christian Kirk is a rookie wide receiver. Ricky Seals-Jones, whatever. Even look at last night. You saw Oakland. By the way, Derek Carr is an abomination.
I'd love for you to tell me how you really feel.
Derek Carr is absolutely he is as bad as you could. Did you see the second to last interception that he threw?
I did not.
Oh my God. Oh.
Do I need to?
Yeah, I got to find it for you. It's truly that bad. Anyone that's watching right now, if you have the link, throw it in chat. I mean, it was so bad that I tweeted last night as it happened that it may have been the worst single interception I've ever seen. It's already been the worst throw on the season, and it might remain the worst throw on the season. Right? I gotta find it. Okay, so
not a great start for the Fighting Grudens.
No. Okay, so since you have a screen share.
Sure.
Can you type in Derek Carr interception?
To what? Google?
To a Google search. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
And then the one.
Derek Carr throws the worst interception ever versus the Los Angeles Rams?
Yep.
Okay.
Wait till you see this.
Okay. I'm going to play it not on the stream just in case there's any issues with doing that. So I'm watching it on my own.
Okay. That's okay.
Alrighty. Carr drops back. Looking. Wait. What just happened?
Dude.
Wait, did Did it hit somebody?
That really no. It's like he went to throw it away and forgot that the sideline was 10 more yards to the left. That's how bad it is. That not one of the worst throws you've ever seen?
Oh my God. He's like losing his mind as he's coming off too.
It is one of the worst you will ever see.
That is atrocious.
It is horrible. And then he threw another one to seal the game. It was a pick six. It was a terrible start for Carr. But I'll say for you guys that are looking forward to week 2, Jalen Richard is 3,400 on DraftKings. He had 11 targets yesterday and had a pretty solid game as the third down back pass catcher out of the backfield. What I find interesting is next week they play the Denver Broncos in Denver, a team that has a scary pass rush and a solid secondary with strong corners, similar to this Rams team. Very similar. Rams defense, I'd say, is better at this rate, but you get the point. I think, again, you could see a scenario where Derek Carr is pressured, where Derek Carr has to get rid of the ball quickly, and Gruden gets Jalen Richard worked into the offense heavily again. He's $3,400 on DraftKings. I found that interesting. Wanted to point that out before I forgot because his matchup could be very similar, and I think Jalen Richard will continue to be used in the passing game, and this game profiles to have a similar to play out similarly to last night's game.
So let's talk about Richard then. Like you said, 3,400, 11 targets yesterday.
Yeah. And they're 6-point road dogs next week.
Do we know how long he was on the field? Do you know how many snaps he played?
I can look right now.
Okay.
They hadn't, when I looked earlier, they hadn't updated snap counts yet.
Okay. I guess more importantly than just sort of, do you think that he can do that again? How do you think he's owned because of that? Because at 3,400, if you knew a guy was getting 11 targets, you're probably jamming him in quite a bit. It's hard to find a better sort of setup at that price point.
Sure. It's a good question.
But I can't imagine after that Oakland performance and a matchup against the Broncos that it's like a terribly popular spot.
I don't think he'll be that popular. I really don't. I think there's still going to be a lot of value on this slate. I have trouble believing that he's just going to be like uber popular.
I would agree.
Yeah, I don't see it. Is it possible? It's possible, but I don't think it will be. Oh, come on, man.
I mean, will it matter? Are we not just stacking the Chargers this week against the Bills and hoping that they can be the Ravens of week 2?
Well, I don't want them to be the Raven. I don't want them to be the Ravens of week 2. Not one Raven had
True.
had more than 50 yards.
That's a good point.
Now, granted, like again, they literally sat most of their guys in the second half. It was that bad. I don't want that to happen.
No.
But I mean, it's obviously a good spot.
Yeah, I'm going to want a decent amount of Rivers and Allen and Gordon.
Yeah.
And Williams at 4,400.
Yeah, I think Melvin is just a spectacular play there.
Yeah, he's going to gain some popularity for sure. I didn't look at the main slate and the salary structure yet, but I'm going to take a look at running backs now. Gordon at 74. Yeah, he is going to be incredibly popular at that price point. Kamara at 9,500 this week.
Yeah. It's and that's what you love about Melvin Gordon is just the fact that this guy is going to see an inordinate amount of touches regardless of the situation. Like if Melvin Gordon is in a game where he's playing from behind, like we saw last week on Sunday, he's still going to see 13 targets and 15 carries.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. And he's going to get way more than 15 carries if that game goes.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I don't expect him to get 13 targets either. I'd say 7 or 8 is probably a more realistic scenario, but he could have 25 carries too.
Yeah.
And because of this game.
Right.
He's going to be incredibly popular as the 5th most expensive running back on DraftKings.
Yeah, that's what was crazy about the fact that Alex Collins did nothing because they didn't even need him.
Yeah.
They they didn't even need him after the first half. Like, it was just embarrassing how bad they were, man, and how bad Buffalo was, and that's like the only thing. That's the only thing that would concern me a little bit. Austin Eckler was used really heavily in that Chargers game, by the way, too. He got a lot of work, and it was kind of surprising. Matter of fact, I think Eckler, in terms of targets, had not that he had okay, so he had only 5 targets, but he caught all 5 for 87 yards and a touchdown. Melvin Gordon, after week 1, has the like 7th most targets of any player in the league. So, him and Kamara are up there. It's pretty crazy, man. I think those type of running backs, targeting them is definitely, it's not, I won't say always, but generally speaking, it's going to be profitable when you target a guy that is never going to be phased out of the offense. And you get that with Melvin. We saw you get that with Kamara. You get it with a Gurley. You get it with most of these guys up top. I guess the thing is with David Johnson, I mean, is this offense now? They opened the season with the lowest over/under on wins, lower than the Bills. Bills managed to fall lower than them, but like this Arizona team is not gonna. They're Sam Bradford. I wouldn't be surprised if Josh Rosen's in by like week 4. I just think Sam Bradford sucks, man.
I mean, if they continue this way, sure. This is like, how much David Johnson would you want to have now this week after seeing them be just absolutely hapless against the Redskins, and now you're going to play the Rams, who are absolutely terrifying defensively.
Yeah, that's what sucks, because it's like his price is down. No one's going to play him this week. But does that even make him? Is that even profitable? Like, is that even worth it? Is it even worth it to play David Johnson just because his ownership's going to be way down after a bad week and a really tough matchup here? Like, there's a very good possibility that they're down by 14 points after the first quarter, and sure, they look to dump the ball off I could just see them getting blown out here.
Yeah.
And look,
this could be over 8 minutes into this game.
Yeah. And anything could happen, right? Maybe
Sure.
they pull a Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Bradford turns into Fitzmagic. I don't see it. They're 12.5-point road dogs here. Like, they're huge dogs on the road in LA. I mean, I guess the good thing is there's no real fan base out there, so it'll be like half Arizona fans. Well, no, Arizona fans.
Now
like
that the Rams are good, they will significantly outnumber the Cardinals fans. I mean, how many Cardinals fans could possibly go to that game?
I know, I'm kidding. The Cardinals fans aren't traveling.
But like, David Johnson's 8,200, Melvin Gordon is 7,400. The ownership gap between those two guys is going to be insane.
Great, yeah.
Unless you're making plays based on ownership, there is no conceivable way that you would prefer David Johnson to Melvin Gordon heading into week 2, right?
No, and I think you bring up some good points. Like, David Johnson, his price did come down from last week.
Yeah.
He is going to be low owned. However,
only $600.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, he should probably, like, at the rate that the Cardinals are going to be heading through this NFL season, like you said, they're 12.5-point underdogs to the Rams this week. David Johnson should probably be like 6,800. They just can't do that probably. But I mean, who would you rather have, honestly? Ignoring price, who would you rather have heading into this week? David Johnson or James Conner?
Oh,
Conner's got Kansas City.
Conner, unquestionably.
Conner 6,700.
Clearly James Conner. And that's to get back to what I was saying about your point, is that he's cheaper, he's going to be low owned, but at the same time, like, does that matter when Melvin Gordon is, in my opinion, Melvin Gordon is still underpriced just because of his workload. Yeah. They are going to be heavy favorites here. Let me see. I don't know if there's a line on this game yet.
I have it here. They are 7.5-point favorites in Buffalo.
Yep. So 7.5-point road favorites, 43-point over under. And then you have James Conner, who is still significantly underpriced at 6,700. I said this last week when we did the process show. volume can be a lot more important than efficiency sometimes. And with James Conner, you're going to get it. With David Johnson, I don't even know if he's going to get the volume. Like, he's going to need to be heavily involved in the passing game. And not to mention, if I'm going to pay above 8K for a running back, I'm just going to play Todd Gurley against Arizona.
Yeah.
The same Arizona team that coughed up 96 yards and a touchdown to Adrian Peterson last week.
Or I'll happily play Kamara expensive against the Browns, who just got carved up by James Conner.
Right. Exactly. I mean, yeah, it's just it doesn't even seem like a potentially profitable venture to say, you know what, I'm going to pivot with David Johnson here. Last week, you're like, okay, they're 1-point favorites. This game should be close, and he's going to get like, if that game was close, David Johnson should get all of the work, like just all of it.
Yeah, he should have. I mean, probably the most combined targets and carries in the league if that game stays close.
Right. But
because they don't have a choice in how to keep that game close.
Exactly. Yeah, like you can, you use Fitz as your possession receiver and move the chains, but that's only if Sam Bradford is halfway competent.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure he is. By the way, I want people to remember one thing. The Kansas City Chiefs did win last week, and they did put up huge numbers offensively and in the special teams game with Tyreek Hill. But their defense, dude, unreal. Unreal. Their defense was still garbage, though. Like, they allowed 424 yards to Phillip Rivers. Josh, I don't know if you've looked just like at a generic box score from this game, but
so many drops.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But it's really impressive to see what the pass catchers did here, because you had Keenan Allen go for over 100 yards. You had Melvin Gordon go for under 100. You had Austin Eckler go for 85. And then you had
Mike Williams for 81.
For 81. Like, you had 4 guys over 81 yards on the same team. So just because Mahomes looked good and Kansas City's offense was humming certainly does not mean at all that this Kansas City defense was efficient, and they weren't. Their pass rush or their run defense ranked 29th out of 32 in week 1. Their pass coverage ranked 19th, which I'm surprised it wasn't lower. They pretty much ranked low everywhere. They also ranked 20 or 30th in tackling. So I'm 100% willing to go back to the well and target this Kansas City team with a James Conner, and certainly with an Antonio Brown. I love Antonio Brown in this matchup. Absolutely love him.
100%. 52.5 total. Biggest number on the board by far. I was surprised to see Pittsburgh be favored by 5 just after.
I agree.
I mean, what a garbage performance for Pittsburgh as a whole.
Particularly Roethlisberger, too.
Oh my God. What do they have? 6 turnovers?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what's worse, Pittsburgh's performance or just the Browns.
Hey, the Browns can still go winless. No, it's
start
crazy.
In 10 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Fucking tie.
It's amazing. But another thing too, Ben Roethlisberger last year and the year before, significantly better at home.
Yeah.
If you look at his fantasy totals, he averaged 10 more fantasy points at home last year than on the road. That's pretty incredible when you consider he played 8 games at home, 8 games on the road, threw almost twice as many touchdowns at home last year, 700 more additional yards. I don't know how you don't love this game. If you're talking about like a game stack potentially winning the Millie Maker, this could certainly be it.
Yeah. What do we know about Eric Berry?
I don't right now. Let me see.
Because I think that is obviously a relevant piece. If he's not playing in particular. Cool. Day to day. Thanks, Andy Reid.
Yeah, day to day. That was 21 hours ago. So.
Okay. So, all right. We'll know by Sunday, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Fantastic.
But, they don't have Marcus Peters anymore.
No.
Right? So
it's a very different defense.
Yeah. They don't have Peters. They don't who by the way, had a pick six and had the coolest touchdown celebration you'll see in a while last night. But this team is not the same.
Nope.
It's absolutely not the same. And I think Le'Veon Bell was always the guy that would just carve them up, but he's not going to be out there. James Conner, I'll tell you this much right now. I'm going to have a ton of Pittsburgh stacks with Roethlisberger, Connor, Brown, or Roethlisberger, Brown, Juju. I might even play all four, honestly.
Yeah, I like the Roethlisberger Brown Juju combo. I think that I'll probably have less Connor this week than I did last week. Price jump, he's going to be incredibly visibly popular to people that don't think about things like the salary point. So somebody like, I mean, I'd be happy having Kareem Hunt at 6,200, a little bit cheaper than Connor. I had an overwhelming amount of Fournette this past week, which kind of hurt me.
How did you end up doing?
For the entire weekend in NFL, I was down 4%. So I think that's a win.
Could be worse. Yeah. Week one, man. Week one.
Yeah. Nothing like I was never really in a spot to catch any like lightning in a bottle. I did have some good combinations of so like all of my Saints stacks and I had like a couple lines of Bucks. They all had either Michael Thomas coming back on the opposite side or one of the Bucks receivers. It was Godwin most of the time for me. So when he scored early, I was like, oh shit, if he gets another one of those, that can be really valuable. Kind of disappeared after that. So I had like solid lines in those situations, just not the right pieces to go with it to really catapult me up in any tournaments. But yeah, when all was said and done, I was down 4% or something, which as far as I'm concerned is an incredible victory.
Yeah, considering how things went. Yeah, I look at the player pool, and there's one guy that keeps standing out to me, and it's a massive risk. But LeSean McCoy at home against the Chargers. I mean, this is a bad Buffalo team, but
did you have him this past week?
Did I have McCoy?
Yeah.
Oh no! I didn't have anyone for that game. I just thought they would be. Why did you have McCoy last week?
I had a pretty solid amount of McCoy.
Yeah, so I guess he left a sour taste in your mouth.
But, 7 carries for 22 yards, 3 targets, 1 catch, and -1 yard receiving is not exactly the return I was looking for.
No, not really. No. I don't think they go behind as early here. It's very possible, but it's in Buffalo, and if the game is even remote, here's the only thing, like the silver lining that I see. If it's football, and there's a ton of parity in football, every single week, not just every year. At home, they're 7-point dogs, 7.5-point dogs. If this game stays, within a score, within 10 points, McCoy's going to get literally all of the work imaginable because they have nobody else on this team to do the job. So that's really all it comes down to is I could see a way where McCoy just gets a shit ton of volume. But
I'm going to have him again almost assuredly significantly higher than the field. Now, if the field is 2%, I might have 10.
Yeah.
But, I mean, this is a guy look, I don't like jumping all the way back to last year, but he was mostly in the mid-7s to 8s range. Games like 19, 25, 24, 28, 32, 28. As long as he's not involved in any sort of assaults in the next couple days, I'm gonna assume that he could have like 80 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, it's no doubt. I think it's very possible, and he's not that expensive. We had a question in chat about Peyton Barber. I did want to touch on Barber. He's 4K. He's facing Philly. Here's the issue. The one issue that I have with Peyton Barber, and we can go back and forth if you don't agree here, but the one issue that I have is that Peyton Barber was unquestionably the number one. He's the lead back right now.
Yeah.
Ronald Jones just squandered every opportunity in the preseason. We know that. But the one thing I do not like is that Peyton Barber in the passing game,
non-existent.
Right. Did not have a single reception. Now, Jacquizz Rodgers only had 1 target and 1 reception. Ronald Jones was not used at all. I don't even think he dressed. but at 4K, I'm okay with that. But I have a lot of respect for Philadelphia's defense, their run defense. And what I could see happening is they, no surprise, in week 1, led the league in pressure. They got more pressure on the quarterback than any other team. That should be expected with Philadelphia. If they're getting heavy pressure on Ryan Fitzpatrick, then you're going to see a lot of dump offs. Well, is Peyton Barber going to be the guy out there in those situations? Or are they going to be relying, on short passes to, like bubble screens to receivers or the tight end? Like, I really wish he could be used in third down situations. I'd have a lot more interest in Peyton Barber, but he's not expensive, so I get it. I just wish he was used in the passing game. Then I would absolutely love him here.
Yeah, I have essentially no interest in him coming into this game. Tampa underdogs in Philly. Look, it's great that they had a monstrous offensive performance against the Saints here. I think it would be a very difficult stretch to think that that's going to happen again to the defending Super Bowl champs.
Yep.
Oh, that did not roll off the tongue right. Oh, it tasted
Super Bowl.
It tasted like bile in my mouth just saying that out loud.
Come on, man.
I'm sorry.
So sad that you're from PA and you're not. And you're not. Not only are you not a fan, you're a hater.
Oh yes, I very much. I get more out of my hatred for the Eagles and the Phillies than I do for any fandom I've ever had positively. It's much more of a positive to see the opposite. Like when Ryan Howard signed that 5-year, $100 and however many $1 million deal, man, did I love that. I loved it so much. I got a Ryan Howard story for you, but we could save that for off the show.
All right.
That's a personal Ryan Howard anecdote.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
How about that?
That's fun, too. Yeah, I can't imagine having more than like a line or two of. Do you go with line or lineup?
Lineup.
Okay, I'm a line
I do not
guy.
use. Yeah, for
especially
some reason
in baseball.
Bothers me. For some reason, it actually boils my blood. I don't know why.
I wish that I said lineup in football. I like saying line in baseball to distinguish from a baseball lineup itself.
Yeah,
that's my only. I kind of hate myself for it.
I think the viewers can figure it out if you were to use the same word for both. I have faith in their intelligence.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, what has to happen for Peyton Barber to be like super valuable here? Tampa upsets Philly. Barber, no chance to be involved really in the passing game.
Right.
Philly, the favorite. So I don't expect Tampa to just be like pounding the ball for 60 minutes.
No.
So what's the dream? I mean, he has to break one, right? Like that's just, he has to score. Now at 4,000, he's certainly worth a flyer. He's going to get the volume that is worth plays at 4,000, but I can't imagine having more than maybe 3, 4, 5%, something in that neighborhood.
Yeah, well, number one, the game needs to stay close.
Yes.
And if that's the case, okay, it's definitely possible. What's interesting is, so they had 66 offensive snaps in week 1. Peyton Barber saw 77% of those snaps. He saw 48 snaps. Jacquizz Rodgers saw 15. Sean Wilson saw 2 of them. So he's the definitive number 1 back. Yeah. It's just unfortunate that you're not seeing it's unfortunate that you're not seeing the potential work in the passing game. Now, could that change? I suppose, but I still have a feeling that Jacquizz Rodgers is going to be used in that capacity, which sucks, because if Barber was used, in third downs, then you'd have a guy that is kind of game script proof, and he's not. But at 4K, it's not as big of a deal.
For sure. Yeah, at 4K, you can take those sorts of chances. If you were priced differently, it might be a bit of a problem.
Right. Like a Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon saw 84% of the snaps the other day. Guys like that, are just going to be involved no matter what. And then with like Seattle, you had Carson and Penny each play 25 snaps, 25, 57, 45% each. some of these teams you have a pretty good idea that they're going to be split. Um, and then how about with Denver, Philip Lindsay. Philip Lindsay saw 4% fewer snaps than Royce Freeman. So yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty here. We know that Barber is the number one guy. It's just how much will he be used on third downs?
Yeah, EMAC in chat a little bit earlier mentioned Lindsey, 4,400 on DK, 15 carries, 3 targets. I think that I would prefer Lindsey in this scenario to Barber. In fact, yeah, no, I definitely would.
That's tough for me.
Oakland on the opposite side,
sure,
compared to going into Philly.
The matchup is not bad at all. My concern is that Vance Joseph is going to 100% just ride the hot hand. Depending on who gets going. Freeman had 40% snaps. Lindsay had 36%. Devontae Booker had 26%. I have concerns that now Philip Lindsay is going to be, for all intents and purposes, Philip Lindsay should be the third down guy.
Yes.
Like I do expect that to be the case. But I also think that there's a very good chance he doesn't get 15 carries again if he's not right on the ground. Like, because you could obviously just throw Booker in over him, or you could just give Freeman the bulk of the work. I don't know if a 50-50 split is something we should expect in the run game going forward.
That's probably true. I think that you probably want a 50-50 split of those two guys in your lines, though. Yeah, I said lines.
Hey, it's okay. No, it's possible.
I can't imagine wanting to prioritize one over the other. They're $100 separated in price.
Right. Yeah, I don't see a big prioritization there either. I don't think you need to. There's no real reason to. By the way, Detroit, what a disaster they are. I just saw, Curry and Johnson's name popped up. Whew.
The Fat Matt's not off to a great start in 2018.
No, certainly not. That was as bad as it gets, man. That was truly as bad as it could possibly get. And then you have Matt Patricia, who has now allowed like 40 points in back-to-back games dating back to the Super Bowl. Really, 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 really ugly game from them. Stafford was terrible. They're like, all right, we got this run game. We got Curry and Johnson. Everyone's stoked about him. You got LeGarrette Blount to bang it in at the goal line. Didn't really need him.
No.
You got Theo Riddick. These guys were as anemic as you could possibly imagine. Like as bad as you could be. I don't know. It's incredible to me that they were that bad. And Jets defensive players actually commented that they knew what he was going to do.
Yeah, I saw that earlier this morning, which is hilarious.
Interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Scary if you're on the Lions. 40. How do you get 48-17
in Detroit?
They could have played that shit on the moon and it would shock me.
Right?
If you had the Jets putting up 48 points yesterday, anywhere in your brain, congratulations. You are certainly in the minority.
Bro, I'll tell you what. I bet a lot of suicide pools just got hammered this week, like dropping 50. Yeah, the Saints, who were the most popular pick in almost any suicide pool.
Yeah.
And then you had the Lions, who were also like a 6.5, 7-point favorite, maybe more depending on the book. Like a lot of teams that were heavy home favorites lost, or at least two of them, and sometimes that's enough. But yeah, it said a number of Jets defenders said they knew what the plays the Lions were going to run based on formation, and Stafford's hand signals allowed them to jump routes, get 5 picks. I don't know, maybe Jim Bob Cooter did nothing. What a name. Did nothing to change up the offense. Like, I don't know. It's crazy.
I don't know where I was going with this. Oh, I had we were talking about survivor pools. Like a genius. I had the Ravens, so I just come away smelling like roses.
Nice. Ravens was a good one. I think I in with considering survival pools, you can't pick the same team twice. Uh, I think the Ravens was the best way to go because they're not going to be that great of a team. Take them the week where you feel like they can just win easily, and then never take them again.
Side note to similar things like survivor pools, I used to do a contest with a buddy of mine where it was processed like fantasy. You picked a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, kicker, and defense. But you couldn't use that particular team combination more than once in the entire season. And you played through the Super Bowl. So if you used, what would be a really good example? Okay, so if you used like Devontae Adams in week 1, I mean, you wouldn't do that, but like, let's say you did. You could not use you couldn't use Randall Cobb later in the year. Like Green Bay wide receivers at that point are dead to you.
Interesting.
Yeah, it would get really dicey because you were trying to keep as many guys as possible into the playoffs, but still not miss like overwhelmingly good situations. It was crazy.
Sounds impossible.
Oh, it was so much fun. Just so much work to think about and like plan out long-term thought process. Anyway.
Sure. I want to know, is this is really important to me, and I've been trying to dig into it. Is the Saints defense, secondary particularly, have they really regressed that much from last season? Because last season they were outstanding.
Yeah.
I don't understand how you can go from that to this. It blows my mind that you can be that bad. I mean, you're talking about a team that finished dead last in pass coverage last week. Can they be that bad? It was Ryan Fitzpatrick too. It's not like it was Tom Brady. They weren't facing Carson Wentz. They weren't facing an elite quarterback. They're facing a journeyman from Harvard that's played on 100 different teams and is old. It blows my mind. That's something we need to figure out immediately, because last year, after like the first 5 weeks, we realized they were a team to avoid. That may not be the case anymore, and we need to find out what's going on with them.
Well, this week is probably not going to be the best barometer for you, because if Tyrod goes crazy against them, then we know they're bad. And the expectation would be that he does not do that. He's pretty not great at throwing the ball. 15 of 40 here against Pittsburgh. Just a incredibly terrible 37.5% completion percentage. So naturally, the Saints are going to climb back up in terms of pass coverage. They just have to. If they don't, they're probably 0-2 and in a deep amount of trouble. Week 3 will be the test in Atlanta. You will see. I think all questions will be answered at that point.
I think so, but I don't know, because they always play divisional rivals tight. They always play Atlanta really, really, really close.
Yeah, if anybody can fuck it up, it's certainly the Falcons.
Sure.
Because they can be a world-beating offense on one day, and I mean the most like puzzlesome team in the world, if that's a word. It's not a word.
So, no. So I'm reading something here on one of these Saints websites. Said there were a ton of things in the secondary that were concerning, but the defensive line did not show up to the concert. While the corners and safeties had their share of bad notes, it's crystal clear that they were singing a cappella for a better part of the performance. Everyone knows that it's bass that manifests rhythm, and the Cameron Jordan-led defensive line provided little of it against Tampa. There were broken plays in which Fitzpatrick, who went 21 for 28. By the way, he only threw 28 times for 417 yards. It's crazy.
It's insane.
Yep. Had time to start a campfire before distributing the ball out to an open receiver. New Orleans has 4-2 and a Ryan Nielsen invested in that line, and they delivered a DiGiorno level letdown on a Sunday. So what I find interesting is that there was no pressure on Fitzpatrick. This week, there's going to be a ton of pressure on Fitzpatrick. I think that makes a difference, and I don't expect Tampa to come back out with the same fire that they did in week 1. But with the Saints, I just want to know if Lattimore is as good. Maybe they're just like never going to recover from the miracle, that Minnesota miracle. Maybe from the post. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's destroyed them all. Who knows?
What I want to know is why whoever wrote that thinks that eating a DiGiorno pizza is some sort of slight.
Yeah, DiGiorno's not that bad.
No, I'm very happy eating DiGiorno pizza on a regular basis. I mean, is it a fresh wood-fired Neapolitan pizza? No, it's certainly not. However, why are we acting like DiGiorno is not a step up on like the Tombstone game? I think Tombstone is the play there. Not that I don't love a Tombstone pizza as well, but I'm just saying. I don't know.
I think you're right. I mean, I'll eat them all, honestly.
Yeah, I've never met a pizza that I was like, ew.
Yeah, I just love pizza, so
yeah.
I'll really eat any kind. Not huge, I'm not huge personally on Sicilian pizza. I'll eat it, but I'm much higher on any other type of gourmet, like buffalo chicken pizza. It's big around my way.
Yes, it is.
Sure, dude, and it's delicious.
It certainly is.
There's honey mustard chicken pizza. Now I don't know how they do it, like down south.
I'm going to pass on that honey mustard one, but that's neither here nor there.
It's phenomenal. But around here, they do a lot of dressed up pizzas. Like some serious gourmet stuff. Like you'll find stuff on pizza that you never really thought existed. And generally, it's always really good.
Yeah, a lot of like steak stuff with lettuce on top of it. Things that I worked in a pizza place in Eastern Pennsylvania for a couple of years. Okay. I'm familiar with, and this was before the pizza renaissance where things were really getting kind of crazy like they are now. But yeah, we had a lot of like really unique, weird stuff.
Cheesesteak pizza is good. I make my own pizza and it's delicious. It's a white pizza. Well, you make the pizza and you have arugula.
Okay.
You have a balsamic glaze, which is outstanding.
Okay. I'm in.
And then you have prosciutto, and then you have something else I can't. Oh, and mozzarella. Pretty good, man.
I'll eat that.
Yeah, it's pretty delicious. The balsamic glaze gives it that tanginess.
That's perfect.
It's pretty damn good.
It's pizza. You can't go wrong.
You really can't. We had a question about Atlanta. Coleman, if Freeman is out, Coleman and the Falcons face Carolina. He's 5,300 on DraftKings. What do you think?
Not somebody that I would want to have a terribly large amount of.
No? Would you rather go LeSean McCoy? $400 difference?
Yeah, probably.
Huh. I don't know if I would.
I mean, what's your dream scenario for Coleman?
Well, I think he's going to be, once again, very heavily involved in the passing game, and I like that. I mean, he always is. Granted, they needed him a lot. Julio Jones had like a 45% or 49% market share of targets in week 1, which is just outrageous. Like that's insane. He saw, what was it? 19 targets. 19 targets. He had a 49% market share targets, which is outrageous as you can get. But Tevin Coleman was still involved. Freeman got hurt. I don't mind Coleman, but I don't have him as like a lock and load type play, just because I think that there are a lot of running backs that I like quite a bit on this slate, and I haven't even fully dug into it yet.
Yeah, I mean, so just look at Zeke last week against Carolina. 15 carries, 4 targets in the passing game. Got a TD, but it's just not a spot I want to be going against Carolina at all.
Yeah.
Look, it's fine. I don't have a major issue with him. There's probably not. I mean, you have to know Freeman is out first and foremost. That's
right.
Clearly a no-brainer there.
Saying it's not a major injury.
Yeah, I would probably rather have LeSean McCoy just because it's not like he's going to be. If that Bills game goes, if they can be in that game in any shape at all, then McCoy has to be involved. Whereas
Right.
Coleman does not have to be involved at all, and the Falcons can win by 40.
Right. Yeah. No, they're 5.5-point favorites too at home. I thought it would be like a 3-point spread with a divisional game, but no, 5.5 points.
That doesn't totally shock me. I mean, the Falcons at home are just a very different team.
They are. And I think Julio is a very good play here. He had a 300. You remember that 300-yard game against Carolina?
Yeah.
He seems to show out against them for what it's worth.
Rivalry game.
Yeah. What I want to know is, the 49ers played Minnesota in week 1.
Yeah.
Really tough matchup.
Yeah.
But now you have Breida and Alfred Morris, who are going to likely split a lot of carries. Morris saw 56% of snaps. Breida saw 49%, but only 4 fewer snaps. He's 4,800. Alfred Morris is 3,600. I guess the question is it even necessary to consider either of these guys? Last night Crowell rushed 10 times for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns against Detroit. He averaged 10.2 yards a carry. And Bilal Powell had 12 for 60. So they combined for 22 carries for 162 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, they just ravaged this Detroit run defense. I want to know if it can happen again. I'm very curious to see if this team or if this Detroit's defense is not as bad as they were in week 1. I don't believe that. I don't think you can be.
No,
but I don't think they're
probably not going to go. You're probably not giving up 48 to the Jets all that often. I mean, granted, like their defense didn't give up 48. It's
correct.
That's a little. It paints it in a worse picture for Detroit's defense there for sure.
Yeah, it's a bit
misleading.
But
I don't see that one coming. I do like having some shares of Breida or Morris though against Detroit at that price point. Favorites relative, 5.5 point line at home. Those are they're gonna get the work. I'm in for that. That could easily see an Alfred Morris touchdown or a Breida touchdown, and you're pretty happy with that.
Yeah. So there's 2 ways to look at it. One, Alfred Morris saw 5 touches in the red zone. Breida saw none. But Breida was also targeted in the passing game, and Morris wasn't. So I think a lot of it is game script, because if this game is close, now it is in San Francisco. I like that it's in San Francisco, and that leads me to lean Morris a little bit, because I think this Niners team at home, coming off a tough loss where they played the Minnesota Vikings pretty tight, they're 5.5 point favorites. It actually sets up pretty nicely for Morris, and I haven't really heard him talked about. I know it's only Tuesday, but Morris is $3,600.
Yeah, I like Morris a lot at that price.
Right. The question is, even if they split, is it possible that Morris still sees 16 carries? And I think the answer is definitively yes. And there's one more way that could happen, is if Marcus Goodwin doesn't play, because then it takes their top receiver out of the game. Mm-hmm. You're really limited to Kittle, who I'm a big fan of George Kittle, but still, Pierre Garçon, and I don't know what, Trent Taylor. They'd be limited. There's no Jerick McKinnon. So I think if you are almost 6 point favorites at home, you can lean on that run game. It wouldn't be crazy to think that both of these guys could have 15 plus carries just on the ground alone.
I completely agree. Morris is definitely someone that I think needs to be paid attention to. Breida slightly less so, barring any weird ownership, just because of price. But I would prefer Morris, but I want to be looking at both of those guys, especially after watching
Detroit.
Yeah, it's just, you can't be confident after something like that.
No, Morris is totally touchdown dependent, but it's not at 3,600, he could crush his price tag. He could kill it. Like, is it possible that Morris had 100 yards and a touchdown in this game at home against Detroit? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Like, Crowell did it on 10 carries. It's
Look,
possible.
I mean, when push comes to shove, for what we're trying to do, if you're going to want to win, everyone's touchdown dependent. And
Sure.
I'm willing to be taking the chance on a guy that's 3,600 that should at least see the ball 15 times, I would guess, in a scenario where they're what is it, 5.5 point favorites, 47.5 total at home. Like, he should get like 15 carries. And if he got all of the red zone carries, let's just say that doesn't normally happen, but he's still going to get a fair share, then yeah, I mean, Morris is a real likely bet to have the opportunity to score a touchdown. And if he does that at 3,600, you're dancing in the streets because you can pair Alfred Morris with Melvin Gordon, and you have
or Gurley.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, anybody really, but like guys that we like at that point too, all the way. You know, Gurley 9,200, really nice pairing with someone like Alfred Morris.
Yeah, and it's crazy too because there are actually a number of inexpensive backs, and I mean dirt cheap backs. It's early; it's only Tuesday again, but that are really firmly on my radar. Jalen Richard in another game where I honestly wouldn't be surprised to see 8 to 10 targets for Richard again. He's 3,400.
Yeah.
Corey Clement, I was very disappointed with his workload. I don't understand why Sproles, I love Sproles, but not for fantasy purposes. I don't see why he got the type of work that he did there. It simply didn't make sense. Clement was not targeted once in the passing game. I don't understand that. I really don't understand it. But I guess it is what it is. He should have been. Darren Sproles was targeted 7 times, but so Clement is cheap. It wouldn't surprise me if he ends up being the value back and nobody plays him because Doug Peterson every week, like, he's gonna try and do things that no one sees coming. So Sproles could see no touches this week, and Clement could see all of the passing downs. So you have Richard, you have Alfred Morris down there at 3,600, which is really, really cheap. And then there's more up around 4K. Like if you liked Peyton Barber or so
Eckler.
like, or Austin Eckler. Yeah. I mean, 4K or lower, there's actually 3 or 4, maybe even 5 guys that are legitimately viable. And that makes this kind of a fun week.
And, James White, depending on which site you're playing on.
Yeah.
9 targets.
Yeah, that's, I mean, like if Fournette is out and TJ Yeldon ends up being chalky at 5,600, I will happily just play no TJ Yeldon and go down lower and hope that they can do the same thing. I'm not a big TJ Yeldon guy.
Yeah, like I'm certainly nervous to play people against Jacksonville, but at some point in time, I'll just be like, well, you know what? It is Tom Brady.
Yep. Yeah, I want to know what happened. I want to know if Sony Michel is returning this week because that can make things interesting. We know that Jeremy Hill is probably out for a little while. And
he's like done though, isn't he?
Is it a done deal? Is he out for the year?
Maybe I read it wrong. Injured reserve, torn ACL.
Oh, you're right. Look at that.
Yeah, I saw that yesterday.
Wow, you're right.
Yeah, so he's we don't even have to worry about him any longer.
Yeah. I was worried that in week 1 he was going to get some work, and he was getting some work until that happened. So
yeah, he's going to need to find a different job.
Yeah.
That work just went away for 2018.
Right. And they no longer have Gillislee. So you don't exactly have the deepest roster at running back when you consider James White isn't someone they like to give carries to. So you have, and Devlin is not a guy that's doing anything more than blocking. So you have White, Burkhead, and Sony Michel. I think Sony Michel could have a massive role this year. It's just probably not going there in week 1 in his first career game against Jacksonville. Not huge on that.
I honestly hope that he doesn't play because I don't think that people are going to go to White because of the Jacksonville matchup, and I think that I would like to be over to Field in that situation.
I would be
They'll
perfectly
use
fine with
him
that.
like passes to James White are just like running plays for me.
Sure.
With
Except
the way the Patriots offense works. He's just not going to get like
guaranteed
18
point.
targets, you know?
Right. Yeah, it's not going to happen. But still, it's not crazy. Now, he had 9 targets last week.
Yeah.
He led the team in targets. Like he had Gronk had 8. Dorsett had 7. Hogan had 5. He was garbage.
That one hurt me. He was so we're doing a gimmick in the live stream beforehand. We got to pick who we think could be either a 100-yard rusher or a 100-yard receiver. Goes with our home run picks that we do in our current baseball live streams. And I had Hogan as my 100-yard receiver. He kind of had a little bit less than that, you know?
What did he have? 10?
It was something shit.
Oh man, that's not really close at all.
No, yeah, five targets, 1 catch for 11 yards. I would have thought like the Patriots lost if I saw that stat line beforehand.
Gronk just dominated.
Yeah.
And when you have Gronk dominating, it's all that matters.
And I had a decent amount of Gronk, so I wasn't super upset with 7 for 123 and a touchdown, but I think I was like 4 times the field or something like that on Hogan. That one stung a little bit.
That'll do it to you for sure. I mean, and Hogan had some popularity, but not where like you're okay if he just totally sucks. But yeah, White had 9 targets, and that's pretty encouraging. Snap count, Burkhead saw 51% of the snaps. White saw 50%. White saw only 1 fewer snap than Burkhead, and Devlin saw only 1 fewer snap than James White, which is interesting. Jeremy Hill played 12 snaps. Probably would have played, around 20. Take that out of the mix and ask yourself what happens when Sonny Michel comes back. How do you split those? And I think Michel is going to be worked heavily into this offense. Like I think he's going to be the Dion Lewis of 2018.
Whoa, interesting.
Oh yeah,
I'm a big Dion Lewis like believer. So that's high praise in my opinion.
Yeah, Sonny Michel was called like the Alvin Kamara 2.0 coming out of college. He's got a ridiculous skill set. I love the kid. I mean, I think they're going to want to integrate him into the offense and like get him up to speed because he's been out for a lot of training camp, all of preseason, and this is his first game. So I'm not saying in week 2, but I think the objective will definitely be to work Sonny Michel heavily into this offense, and I'm pretty excited about it. I can't wait for a decent matchup where no one's considering him. I hope he just sucks against Jacksonville and does nothing for that purpose alone.
I think we should touch on Dion Lewis quick before we start to trickle out of here. James White last week, 5 carries, 9 targets. He's doing the like Dion Lewis, the poor man's Dion Lewis for the Patriots, right? Mm-hmm. Lewis this week, $5,000 going up against Houston. Last week, 16 carries for 75 yards and a touchdown, 8 targets for 5 catches and 35 yards, 22 fantasy points at 5,000. Last year, like I understand he's part of the Patriots offense. This is a very different team when you have Marcus Mariota under center or whoever's under center. 23 fantasy points, 31, 35. Like he looked good last week. He's reasonably priced. He's going against a Texas team that gave up like knockoff Dion Lewis numbers to James White. I think I really like Dion Lewis this week. Problem was I really liked the Titans last week as well, and that sucked. So,
Have you seen the snap count distribution between Dion Lewis and Derrick Henry from last week?
I'm about to.
73% to Lewis, 30% to Henry.
As it should be.
That is crazy.
Why would you not want it to be like that?
I think I personally don't think Derrick Henry's bad. I think he got outplayed.
Yeah, neither do I. But I want the guy that's out there that can do both things.
Yeah, and I think this will be another hot hand type situation with this team. Like I think if Henry gets off to a good start, he's going to see the bulk of carries and the bulk of work. But that's just if you're a Derrick Henry owner too, like in seasonal leagues, you should be worried. Like, you should be concerned.
You probably should have drafted both people.
Right. But they were both going like fifth round, and then like Lewis in the 5th or 6th. Like, they were going pretty close. That's pathetic, man. Like, if the fact that the game was delayed twice.
Yeah.
Like, it was a crazy but it didn't bother Dion Lewis.
Lewis last year, number 1 in DER on Football Outsiders of all running backs, number 2 in DVOA. That's just rushing. That is not factoring into his receiving. Receiving, Dion Lewis, he was 12th in DR, which is incredibly solid. 10th overall in DVOA for running backs. Like, you can make a case that he was the best running back in football last year from an overall standpoint. I know the Patriots offense is a bit of a different story. It paints a different picture. But every time he touched the ball, he was phenomenal. He was he was arguably the most efficient running back running and passing in the league last year.
Absolutely. He's legitimately good.
And he's priced at $5,000 this week.
He's cheap. He's cheap. Those are impressive stats. Like, there's no doubt about it. And when you start looking even further into it, like elusive ratings, he always ranks towards the top.
Yeah.
There isn't a lot that he doesn't do well. It's kind of crazy. He does a lot of things really well, and at $5,000, I think you're right. Like, it's not at all crazy to consider. It's not at all crazy.
He's still cheaper than Henry. $200 cheaper than Derrick Henry this week.
Yeah, I don't know. I always get scared. I hate playing. One thing I hate about football is having to choose between the committees, like the
it's miserable.
It always drives me it drives me nuts, like, because one guy could have a better spot, but then you say one of them breaks off a big run early in the game, then he just gets he gets the heavier workload for the game, and then the next game it's the other guy. That always frustrates me. But Dion Lewis, because he's capable of kind of doing everything, is the safer play, and he's the higher upside play too, honestly.
Yeah.
He's the higher upside play.
He played 31 snaps in either pass situations or pass blocking. Derrick Henry, 10.
Crazy.
So basically what the scenario is unless Tennessee is up by 25, like, for the most part, Lewis is going to be put in more advantageous situations. What you're hoping for is that the Titans aren't on the 1 yard line if you have Dion Lewis.
Exactly. And even at that point, I don't know. Maybe it's just like, screw it, he's playing better. We're gonna keep him.
You want him in. You probably want them both on the field. It's not like you can't motion Lewis anywhere else on the field. So he's certainly going to be involved there. He's like a Swiss Army knife in the backfield.
I'm looking at on PFF last year's. I'm going to go to 2017 and look at where he ranked in some of these important categories. So Dion Lewis, ready for this? Tackles avoided per attempt, ranked 2nd behind only Alvin Kamara in the entire league.
Yeah.
Okay. That's an important stat.
Yeah.
A very important stat. Yards after contact. Dion Lewis ranked behind Kamara, Blunt, and Derrick Henry. That's it. Like, those 2 stats are really important. And yards after contact and tackles avoided per attempt. That's really amazing that Dion Lewis ranked up there in both of them. He ranked top 3 or top 4. That shows you how capable he is. I mean, Derrick Henry, he ranked high in yards after contact, and he wasn't bad in tackles avoided either. But it just goes to show you that Dion Lewis is not just your complimentary back that comes in and spells Derrick Henry when he gets tired for a drive.
No, he's legitimately good. I thought that was the biggest thing that was underrepresented for the Patriots season coming into the season, was not having Dion Lewis any longer. He was exceptional, and he would be God, would he be good this year for New England if he was still there?
Yeah, he'd be huge. And he got a lot of work in New England towards the end of last season. Like the last 8 games, he was averaging like 18 touches or 18 looks per game, which is a lot for a back in New England.
Yeah, week 17, or let's say week 16, just to go back even further. 24 carries plus 5 targets in the receiving game. 26 carries, 7 targets. 15 carries in a blowout against Tennessee, 10 targets. I mean, that's
pretty
just
wild. Pretty
the
wild.
guy does it all, and he does it in an incredibly efficient manner.
Yeah, I think at 5K you have a point. Like he's definitely playable. Now, is he a cash play? I don't know.
That would scare me.
Yeah, obviously we'd have to dig into that a little bit more, but I think he's, in terms of upside, Dion Lewis offers plenty of it.
Sure.
Plenty of it.
100%.
8 targets last week. Wow.
I'm a big believer. If I cared about the Titans in any way, I would probably get some sort of Dion Lewis memorabilia.
Yeah. By the way, the Washington Redskins is the last thing I'll say for today.
Okay.
Now that I came across this, but it's interesting. Face the Colts.
They did? Or they do, rather?
Face coming up. The Colts.
Yes.
The Colts secondary, in my humble opinion, will be absolutely putrid all season long.
That is a safe bet.
Very safe. They finished dead last in DVOA last year. They're projected to finish last this year. Week 1, they finished 26 in pass coverage according to Pro Football Focus. Go over the stats. Not good. And it's not like Cincinnati has the craziest receiving corps. Like obviously AJ Green is a monster, and had it not been for the fumbles, he would have been a lot better than he already was. John Ross scored at his first reception. I think first. And then you don't really have anything else outside of that. Like you're not going to convince me that anyone else on this in the receiving corps is good. Especially I like Eifert, but not when he's only playing like 20 snaps in a game. So point is, with Washington, I think you might be able to get some really good value here. And I think they could go vastly overlooked too, simply because nobody is really looking at it. Maybe Richardson, but I kind of like this Washington passing game. I had a lot of Jordan Reed last week.
Yeah.
His price is up a little bit, but if Jordan Reed is going to be on the field and healthy, he's got to be a guy that we consider to continue to target each week. So yeah, I'm going to be picking on the Colts a lot this season, I think.
As you should. Washington in a great spot this week. I love it. I'm very pro Alex Smith. Only 6,000 on DK. Well, I mean, only is relative. He was 5,600 last week. The Colts, just an amazing matchup. Smith didn't have to do much. That game was pretty much over immediately against Arizona.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So at least with having Luck on the opposite sideline, Luck is in Andrew Luck, not like the Colts getting lucky. He will be slinging if the game goes poorly. You're nervous. You're playing the rest of the game a bit differently than if it's Sam Bradford. But I really like Smith, Chris Thompson, Jordan Reed. I hope that Paul Richardson can get a bit more involved. 6 targets, but just I had a pretty decent amount of him this past weekend, so that was kind of underwhelming for me. He was a big piece in some of the lineups that I needed, like the last type guy to flip it from value wide receiver here to another value wide receiver that went well. But I love this Redskins spot coming into this week as I guess I'll say a lapsed Redskins fan. I will cheer for them more so than I will cheer for any other team. They will not take priority over my fantasy teams in any shape or form. I'm very much pro money. And they are a really hard team to root for, just holistically. But yeah, the Colts secondary and pass coverage is pretty dreadful. So I want to have a lot of guys that can catch balls for the Redskins, and no one is really priced at a point where I'm nervous. I'm not going to be riding too much of the Adrian Peterson bandwagon into this week. I'd rather just have more Chris Thompson.
Yeah, so would I. So would I. I don't think Peterson's going to continue to replicate. Although this is a game that should be pretty favorable for him, and just in terms alone, just in terms of the game flow, like it was against the Cardinals. They are favorites over the Colts, but I expect this game to be close. I do. I think this game's going to be close. I think Andrew Luck's going to show up. Um, I think T.Y. Hilton will still get the job done. I'm a huge T.Y. Hilton fan. I think he's so much. I think he's excellent.
I
Yeah,
can't mentally get there with T.Y. Hilton just
I
because
love
of the
him.
Colts. I have no problem with him. He's been incredible, but I always have this trouble like remembering that he's not old because of Marvin
Yeah, he's
Harrison and
not
then
that.
Reggie Wayne. Like I just picture all of these guys as one same wide receiver for 25 years or however long
Right,
it's been since
right.
Harrison was there.
I know, but no, Hilton every year that Luck is healthy is fantastic.
Yeah, he's so much younger than I thought he was. It just in
Yeah,
my
he's not
mind,
old.
he's just a different. He's Reggie Wayne, and he changed his name, but he's only
Yeah,
28.
yeah, he's not. No, he's not that old at all, and he's really good too.
Yeah, it freaks me out sometimes when I think about it. I was just like, oh, Hilton's probably gonna fall off. He's 34. And it's like, oh no, he's not. He's not. These
Right?
they've just
He's
had the
close
same
to
sort of
retirement.
style receiver on their team for I don't know 20, but close to 20 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely 20 years.
Yep.
So yeah, I've just got this weird mental block for T.Y. Hilton in my head. I wish I didn't have it, but sorry, Eugene Marquise Hilton.
Well, he's a good one, and I'm gonna playing a lot of him this season.
Didn't know his name was Eugene. Did you?
No, is it actually Eugene?
Eugene Marquise Hilton.
No wonder he calls himself Ty. Where's that come from?
Oh, let's find out. Wikipedia. What do you got for me? How is this not like the first? My daddy's name is Tyrone, so ever since I was little, everyone has just used the first two letters of that. Okay, so his dad's name is Tyrone, so they just called him Ty because obviously.
Well, that makes no sense at
Not
all.
entirely sure where they're going with this one.
And it's T.Y. dot.
Yeah,
It's not even.
by accounts to this quote, it doesn't stand for anything at all.
It's not even like Ty Montgomery where there's no dots, there's no periods in between.
No, this is
You know what I'm saying? Like if you're taking the first two letters of a name, it shouldn't be dot. It should just be the Ty. That makes no sense at all.
yeah, he should be going as
None.
Ty Hilton, but even still, that's just like a nickname.
It's almost as bad as Scooter Jeanette gave himself his nickname when he was a kid. It's true. They call me Scooter.
Yeah, I never gave myself a nickname.
No, you can't give yourself a nickname. Nicknames have to be given to you.
Yeah,
It's just nicknames 101.
unless you're the natural son of someone. So you don't have to, and no one has to give you a nickname if your dad had a nickname. Like my dad's nickname is Smokey.
Okay.
Anytime that I see any one of his sort of like people that he knew when he was a kid, I'm just gonna be like Little Smoke. Not that I'm like I inherit the ability to have that nickname.
Did you say call me Little Smoke?
No, not at all. But it's just sort of like
Okay, then it's
I
fine.
naturally have the ability to use that, I think, because of my dad. I can
That's
give that to
fine.
myself and appropriate it. I don't at all. I don't at all.
Okay.
But I think you can appropriate your own father's nickname.
I don't know if you can. Like you have to have like one of your dad's friends that maybe you call uncle, whatever, like call you that first. As long as one person calls you that, you're fine. But you can't go be like, hey, I'm Smokey's son. Call me Little Smoke. Like I don't think that's okay. I don't know, man.
Yeah. I think you get into trouble when you tell someone what you want them to be called.
Oh, you think? Yeah, that's a massive problem.
Yeah.
It's a big violation for sure.
Thumbs down to T.Y. Hilton then.
I don't understand it.
I really don't understand it now that I know that his name is Eugene.
Eugene. Well, that's a good place to end, huh?
Yeah, it is. It is. That was a nice look at some of the options heading into this NFL season. I think we'll probably do a much closer look at sort of what we're looking to do for Sunday come Thursday, if I have the ability to speak to you Thursday morning.
Yeah. You definitely have other things to worry about for sure.
Call me Ishmael. Good work, JM in chat. Yeah, so we will be back. You and I will be back doing this hopefully on Thursday, barring the output of this hurricane that is coming. It'll be myself and Adam tomorrow. You and Adam, though, deeper dive today, 5 to 6.
Yes, sir.
Taking a look at this just fascinating baseball slate for today. Yeah, it's the inverse of yesterday. There's not a pitcher I like on this entire slate.
It's crazy.
And every pitcher I liked yesterday sucked outside of Marquez. So, perfect.
You're not a Chris Sale fan?
He's only throwing 40 pitches today.
Oh
Chris
wow.
Sale, $7,000 on FanDuel today.
That's crazy. I haven't done the baseball research yet.
Yeah,
40 pitches.
Yep.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
I shouldn't pay $13,600 for
you should probably not have any exposure there. I think you'll struggle.
Oh man, there's a couple. I'm just looking. I'm glancing over. There's a couple guys I don't mind, but it's not pretty.
I would love for you to name one.
Mike Fultonevich.
I don't like it.
No, I just think San Francisco's terrible.
So do I. His price point leaves such it's really difficult for me to believe that he hurts me at 11-2.
No, I don't think he would. And I think you're right, but I'm just and like Mike Fiers has actually been really good lately, but he's pretty expensive too. So yeah, not pretty. Good thing Adam's writing the deeper dive.
Yeah, I don't know who to Glasnow still 8,700 coming off the negative 12.7 after we filleted him for 5 hours throughout that day.
And facing Cleveland.
Yeah. And he's a guy that I'm going to have 10% of probably just because. But I mean, we talked, Adam and I talked about him for 45 minutes. He was the topic of conversation in Slack chat for the entire day. And he got waxed in the first 15 minutes. And all of a sudden he was already out.
Yep. Oh, it was bad. He got his dick kicked in for sure. Yeah, look, he's gonna have some bad games, but this one was atrocious. I mean, this one there's no coming back from that.
I might hit the randomization button at 100% on pitching and just shrug my shoulders, say YOLO, and hope I catch one.
Yeah, it would not be surprising to see that pay off.
Something's got to pay off. Well, I can't complain about yesterday, but something's got to pay off.
Maybe Jose Urena.
All right, let's get out of here. 90 minutes of this. Good work.
90 minutes. A lot of football talk. I could talk football all day. No problem.
Yeah, I'm ready to start digging into lineups. I hope that I have the ability to even play this weekend.
Yeah, well, stay safe, brother.
I will do my best. Best of luck, everybody. Tune in from A to B, 2:30 today. Deeper dive, 5 o'clock tonight. And then live stream tonight, Chris and ? Could be me, could be Jake. Who knows? Later, people.